Welcome to the Flower Lounge, a place for conversations with wildly creative people and a little plant-loving wisdom to help you experience life in full bloom. I'm Katie Hess, flower alchemist and founder of LOTUSWEI, and I believe in a world where we're all living at our personal edge. Welcome to the Flower Lounge Podcast. This is the special monthly episode called Moonshine with our intuitive astrologer, Kristina Wingeier. And we're going to be talking about March 2019. Hi, Kristina.
Hi, Katie. I can't believe it's March already.
I know. Isn't it wonderful?
Is it wonderful? It is wonderful. It's wonderful. We're just cruising along. 2019, almost a quarter of the way through. Pisces time. Yeah, there's a lot of energy in Pisces. And of course, the big thing for March that's going to have folks, well, there's two really big things. We got the Mercury retrograde in Pisces, but also this whole new Uranus cycle begins as well. But let's just back up because we don't want to neglect Venus, who starts out the month by changing signs. So she's been traveling in Capricorn almost of January. No, not January. What was the last month? February. February. And which can be kind of a more, well, it's just been, let's just say, a little bit of a challenging journey for her because she's had to navigate meetings with Saturn and Pluto and the South Node, which are all very strong, sometimes considered to be hard planets and aspects to deal with. So Venus has been under a lot of pressure. And so she's going to, right before she changes.
Wait, hold on. Let me interrupt you. When you say Venus has been, okay, for the listener, she's making really funny faces at me here. When you say Venus has been under pressure, what does that mean for us? Does that mean like we're working hard at our love life and money and relationships? Or like, what does that mean actually when you say that?
What it means to me is that there has been the pressure to get very clear about what you're committed to.
I gotcha.
And what it is that the foundations that you're building your life on, definitely in matters of the heart, relationships, your money, your financial investments. These kinds of things are very Venus areas, as well as your self-worth, beauty, all the Venus things. So it really depends. Some folks are going to really not feel much of this at all. And then there's going to be some people who they've got a lot of stuff going on in Capricorn or Cancer or any of the cardinal signs, and they'll be getting these very difficult oppositions or conjunctions or squares, which are going to highlight it all. So that's the kind of pressure. Yeah.
Okay. And so is that lifting?
Well, it is. Venus will make an aspect right before she changes signs. She's going to have this square with Uranus and Aries. And to me, it looks like Uranus is like breaking her out of jail. and like all the Venus and Capricorns out there, I'm not trying to diss y'all, but I just think Venus moving from Capricorn to Aquarius is moving from a very heavy, earthy, responsible, pragmatic place to a lot of freedom and independence and kind of a little bit of detachment from the heaviness. So I think that Uranus is jailbreaking Venus, right? There's some kind of little encounter they're going to have. Maybe there'll be something in your life that there's a little bit of a challenge that just pushes you to assert your independence and to kind of move forward away from something that's no longer serving you. Because truly the last thing that Venus does before she leaves Capricorn, as far as navigating those planets and points, is go over the South Node of the moon. And we've been talking a lot about the Marie Kondoing of your life. Venus is like going through that. And then she moves into Aquarius and it's very expansive, a lot of more space for her to have. If she's, if you have kind of cleared away and recommitted and figured all that out, then you've got some freedom coming.
What day does that happen?
March 1st, Friday, on Venus's day, March 1st.
That's the jailbreak?
That's the jailbreak that's how I'm looking at it. And then moving into Aquarius that same day after she makes that aspect with Uranus. And it's a lightening up. It's definitely, it's an air sign from an earth sign. So just even thinking about being on a very, very earthy to kind of take off, that expansiveness of rising up and seeing the ground from above, looking at the terrain with some distance. The Aquarius energy can be a little bit detached sometimes emotionally, and sometimes that's okay. So yeah.
Sounds like a breath of fresh air.
I think so. And that aspect will take us through the weekend. Of course, there'll be lots of little things happening with the moon and whatnot. But then the big news for the month really does come the first week, some of the bigger things. So on Tuesday, the 5th, we have our first Mercury retrograde this year, and everybody has, their idea about what this means. And it's truly not the worst thing in the world. It really is an invitation to take a time out for reevaluation. I mean, that's ultimately what this is. And, we're so used to everything moving so quickly and all the technology functioning so perfectly and and sometimes things just don't go like that in life. That's no big deal, right? There's an opportunity to really get some insights into some healing, spiritual practices, creative practices, forgiveness. Like, this is the kind of journey that Mercury retrograde in Pisces will be taking. And what I think is interesting is, when a planet stations retrograde, they're very, very still for a number of days, sitting on the same degree. And so I've got all these like seafaring metaphors coming up today. So I apologize if it gets kind of trite, but it seems to me like on this Piscean sea that Mercury's dropping anchor here at 29 degrees Pisces. And this is where Chiron was for almost a month before Chiron changed signs. So I feel like we're dropping in. Before we got on the call, I'm like, oh, we're going spelunking in our subconscious, where we're like getting in and getting down and working and looking at the stuff that is in this part of our lives in our chart for healing, for a review and a reevaluation and a kind of recalibration. So I think it's wonderful. It's a really beautiful opportunity for healing and spiritual renewal, right?
That sounds great. And we don't need our computers to work like super fast when we're taking time off to do all of those things.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. And
it's a good excuse to sort of just like push back and be like, why am I pounding out 500 emails a day? I should just take time for spiritual practices, creative practices, and forgiveness.
Right. And even I feel like this, I'm just going to jump to this little elixir that I have in my hands, because I feel like it's the perfect elixir that you're going to share with us about for this retrograde. We talked about this on that webinar when I was calling it, I think, dream catching with the Mercury retrograde, but today it's subconscious spelunking. I think tell us a little bit about this fern, because when I'm reading the bottle, vision from within, internal resourcing, effortless unfolding, so perfect for the Mercury retrograde. I love it.
Yeah, so the essence for this month in the flower evolution is the eagle fern, and that was collected in the Arctic part of the world in British Columbia in the springtime. And when you think, even just thinking about, watching a fern, how it unfurls, it's like this concept that our wildest creativity comes from within. And it's for those times in our life when we are working on visions or projects that we can't necessarily see the final outcome, or we're doing something that's never been done before, or that's a little bit out there or otherworldly. And the greatest resources for those types of projects or endeavors are within us. There isn't anywhere to look outside of us for that. And you could think of it in terms of work or creativity or your spiritual path or your relationships or anything that you're working on, that it's sort of like you're finding a new solution for, and you're finding it from the inside out. It will also help us dissolve that sensation that we're stuck, or that we need something from the outside, that we won't be able to accomplish our aims, that we need some other piece of information from the outside, or becoming too, like yin, bogged down in darkness and dampness, or too yang, burning out from overstimulation and action. So finding like that appropriate balance and mix, so that you can be fully in alignment, not be afraid of the unknown, and just sort of dive into the unknown, knowing that you're just going to unravel everything from the inside out.
Perfect. It's so good for this Mercury retrograde. It really, really beautiful alignment. And I also think that the other thing that I think is really stabilizing about Mercury being so still right before this new moon, having dropped anchor, is that right before the new moon, I think it's before, let me double check on that. Yeah, Uranus changes, goes back into Taurus for the full 7-year tour before the new moon on the 6th. And so this Uranus in Taurus is kind of shaking up the unshakable. Uranus is change and kind of, sudden shifts and liberation.
Yeah,
And
Taurus is so solid.
So solid, so still, so reliable. So it's like shaking up the unshakable. And this stillness of Mercury, right, I think is really stabilizing to help us get steady for the big changes that are coming. And I just think it's nice. Even though it might feel a little crunchy or awkward, I think if we can slow down and get inside our bodies and go inward, and it's a new moon in Pisces, conjunct Neptune also. So there's a very dreamy quality. All the things that I was talking about with the Mercury retrograde are definitely highlighted with this new moon in Pisces. There's a lot of imaginative, kind of sensitive, mystical energy. It's like you're checking in with your spiritual and creative pilot light on how you'd like to dial it up or down, or do you need to rekindle it? Because we've also got this asteroid Vesta involved in this new moon, and she's the brightest asteroid goddess, the brightest asteroid, and does represent that sacred flame, that inner fire, right? And in Pisces, with this new moon in Pisces, it is very much about connecting with that inner motivation for what you're doing.
And what day is the new moon?
On the 6th, same day that Uranus changes to Taurus. Okay. Yeah, and then Mercury retrograde the day before. So it's like quite a bit of shifting, although with the stillness of Mercury, I think it might feel a little awkward for some people. So that's the more that we can just surrender to it and let ourselves slow down. I mean, I know it's the middle of, I don't know, it's hard for people to do that, but we can find moments of that, right, throughout the day if we're feeling overwhelmed or overstimulated or things are going too slow. It might be an opportunity to take a moment and just recalibrate and connect. And yeah, so let me see what else on this new moon, anything that I've written. Well, yeah, there's I won't get into like all of the astrological aspects, but I just will say that this new moon is definitely supporting this kind of finding concrete and tangible and practical steps to bring your dreams and visions, to build them out, and just really focusing again on, this Pisces energy, which is very creative and spiritual, very much about healing and forgiveness. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Ho'oponopono prayer. Have you heard of that?
I have.
That's what came to my mind when I was thinking about this new moon, was that prayer of forgiveness and compassion.
And because I don't have it memorized by heart, but it's like seeing yourself in someone else, right?
It's kind of like, it feels to me, I don't have it memorized by heart either, but it feels to me like a type of meta practice where you're asking for, where you're asking for forgiveness and forgiving and being in appreciation and gratitude. It seems like that's kind of the vibration. And I feel like that is a really good frequency to cultivate for March in general, with this Mercury retrograde, and this new moon has that vibe to me. Yeah.
Okay. So how about one of the rituals for new moon being one of two things? One, if you find yourself getting frustrated with the slowdown, push back from technology and take some time for this subconscious spelunking. Or number two, do a quick scan of anybody and everybody in your life that you might want to forgive, and just bring in that sense of forgiveness and softness.
You might need to start with yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even forgiveness is a funny word too. Even if it's just like a softening.
Mm-hmm.
Softening toward yourself and a softening toward that person or situation, or having a deeper understanding, or just not understanding at all, but just softening.
Yeah, just softening. I mean, it's not condoning, you know what I mean? It's not approving bad behavior. It's really just a way to free yourself from a rigidity and a stuckness and a pattern that's probably a disservice to you ultimately, I think. So it's a hard thing to do for sure. But the softening, that we can work with just with the breath, right? It's just that the breath and inhaling and exhaling and softening a little bit a few times with the breath. And it really does make a huge difference. So that's a lot. Again, it's a lot of Pisces energy. The new moon is conjunct Neptune. Things might be a little blurry. And that might be the softening too, because Neptune is a big dissolver. Neptune dissolves things. So there's a softening at play in this new moon, actually, with the sun and the moon so close to Neptune.
Yeah, and if people don't relate to forgiveness, like sometimes and forgiveness is kind of a funny word. You say that and it's like, oh God, it seems like such a big, but you could think of it as like, where in my life do I have a relationship with someone that there's a little bit of hardness from my side or their side? And then just, find that hardness and see if you can soften that inside yourself with the help of Neptune.
With the help of Neptune. And, the next day on the 7th, just to pay attention, because the moon will have moved into Aries and will make a conjunction with Chiron. And this will be the first time that we have this experience of the moon aspecting Chiron in this new Chiron journey in Aries. And so again, the tenderness around any pain around who you are, your identity wounds from childhood, things like that. It'll be part of this whole retrograde, Uranus and Taurus, new moon in Pisces situation. There's just a lot of feelings being stirred up, and there's, it's really interesting to me where Mercury is stationing right there where Chiron was for so long. So it feels like when I wrote it all out and I drew it all out, it just seemed like there's this sequence set up that's actually to help us grow and shed and heal and come into a deeper level of compassion with ourselves. So, and it can be very activating to you or people around you, right? They may not be at the same place you are, able to soften and things like that. So just beware that if people are very prickly, there's a lot going on in these first few days that could prickle them of the week, because we're looking at the kind of like the first week in March beginning on the 4th, right? So that's happening. And then over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, the 9th and 10th, there are some nice stabilizing aspects between the sun and Saturn, and then Mars and Neptune. So it just feels like there is an ability to kind of, again, regain your footing, to stabilize yourself, to get some work done with that Sun-Saturn connection. And really, again, like we're being invited into visioning from the inside out, but taking tangible steps one by one in the real world to bring our dreams and our visions into the world. And I think these aspects over the weekend could be helpful in supporting that. You've gone spelunking, Uranus shifted and shook up, and it's going to shake up a new part of your life. And, there's been a lot of deep diving, and then there's just a little stabilization to maybe write some things down or get a moment of clarity or a moment of focus, before you take another dive under the waves. So
that sounds great.
Yeah.
So is there another dive coming in under the waves?
Oh, there's lots of dives. I mean, it's a Mercury retrograde in Pisces. There's going to be lots of waves and lots of dives.
Okay.
And then let's see, what else did I write? I wrote the following week, midweek, we will have the sun is going to be making some aspects that are going to be very clearing and empowering. So Wednesday the 13th, the sun is going to make an aspect to Pluto, and Pluto is all about transformation, right, and power, and also an aspect to Jupiter, which is really about expansion and opportunities. And so this is really a moment to kind of clear out and really get clear about how much responsibility you can take on. With this, whenever we have Jupiter come into play, Jupiter in Sagittarius, Sun in Pisces, that's a very expansive kind of like, oh, I can do it all. And there's so many ideas and so many things. And it just gets really big and out of hand. And there is, with this Pluto thing going on with the sun, it's like clearing and like, no. If you take on too much, you're going to burn out kind of thing. So I just feel like it's a moment We've got the retrograde happening, which is already like a review time. So this could be, you know, at work or at home or whatever, just really reevaluating what you're saying yes to, and maybe kind of clearing out some things that you're saying yes to that are distracting or not really part of why you're here and what you're doing, you know, in a bigger way. Does that make sense?
Love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
So there's that. And then, yeah, this is an interesting latter part of the week, actually. There's some action on Thursday. Thursday's a really interesting day as well. First of all, we have our very favorite thing, which is a cazimi.
Woo!
That's when Mercury makes that exact conjunction with the sun. And there's that like Mercury has the ear of the king, and there's like a little magic involved, and you might get an insight or an aha, or you can make a wish, things like that. That's always nice. And for those of you who like to look at your chart, that's happening at 24 degrees Pisces. That's the little magic cazimi place. And maybe you have a planet there or something going on there. It's a little special for you. But not only that, Mars is in a very good relationship with Saturn that day. Mars in Taurus and Saturn in Capricorn, which really help to get things done in the real world. Like this is just like the building kinds of aspects, prioritizing, commitments, boundaries, all these kinds of things. Really, it's a trine, so they're flowing together really well. And I think that it's also, you know, it's one of two aspects. Mars and Saturn are going to trine themselves again when Mars is in Virgo in September. So what's interesting, the reason I bring that up is we have this new moon in Pisces this month, and then in September we have the full moon in Pisces. So we have a 6-month arc of time, and in both the full moon and the new moon, Mars and Saturn are in good places together in earth signs. So there's something that we're building. Like you can do a measure of, you can kind of track where you're at now. You've got a 6-month plan. You're going to revisit it at the full moon, and Mars and Saturn are going to be in another beneficial relationship in an earth sign. So it feels very tangible and like practical. And, you know, again, we have all this dreaminess going on, and to be able to balance that out with taking steps in the real world is pretty useful, I'd say.
Sounds great. Totally useful.
I know. I'm just making such a good spin on this month. I'm the optimistic astrologer today. No, really, it's a good it's beautiful. I love it. And what else is happening? Friday, the 15th, you got to watch out for a lot of like inflated talk and wild ideas that get out of hand. There's a Mercury-Jupiter aspect that can really get people saying making promises they can't deliver on, or, you know, it's lots of words, but not a lot of action. That's definitely in the air on Friday. So you really want to think about what you're saying, and are you just filling up space, or, you know, do you have action and what's the word, gravitas? No, I don't know. Behind your words, can you actually do something with them? Are you just talking just to talk? Bragging, self-inflating, that kind of stuff. It'll be really interesting to see what's happening in the news that day. If you watch the news, I bet there'll be some very loud talking heads jabbering on about things.
Sounds like a car salesman. Like, yeah, we'll get you a deal. We'll get you a deal. Come on in. We'll get you a deal.
Yeah, we'll get you a deal. And then this weekend, you know, we're building up towards the full moon by this point, and it's going to be a nice weekend to get you're going to be deepening into this Mercury retrograde, getting some more kind of penetrating insights around your personal values and belief systems. Mercury is making some aspects to Pluto and Mars, and that's kind of the summary of what that all means, I feel like, in real-time talk rather than actually what the aspects are. Okay. So that's useful always. And again, this retrograde journey is not just to screw you up. It's really to help you go back over places that you've recently been in the last few months and see where you need to recalibrate and repattern and redo things, or kind of recapitulate, you know? Yes, so that's the weekend. And then we have a full moon in Aries on the 20th. We also have the sun changing signs on the 20th, so it's an equinox. So it's a day of, there's that 24-hour period here in, well, I guess everywhere where we have equal day and equal night. At that moment of balance, the beginning of the astrological year. The full moon will be in Libra, which is also emphasizing this finding balance, or resting in a moment of balance, like when you're in a yoga pose and a balance pose and you have that little sweet spot where you actually balance and then you fall out. Like this is this equinox time and this full moon in Libra, when there's feeling like a lot of overwhelm, things are feeling a little, the word that's come into my mind is koyaanisqatsi. I don't know if did you ever see that movie, Koyaanisqatsi?
Huh.
Oh, it means life out of balance. It's a film by, anyway, I won't get into it, but this is going to be like, how can I recalibrate in the moment? How can I find balance in this moment where everything is feeling topsy-turvy? It's a full moon. It's a lot around reestablishing the right balance of give and take in relationships is up in this full moon. We've got the Aries Libra axis. The sun is conjunct Chiron in Aries. So that neediness and that wounded child that, is maybe acting out in relationships might be stimulated. Yeah. That kind of like, reactivity where you push away and walk away and leave something behind because you don't want to have to feel the pain or heal the pain, like that kind of stuff. That's going to potentially be very active on this full moon. And there is also an aspects and kind of little tendrils around, maybe just agreeing to disagree. It's instead of trying to make each other make sure you can all see eye to eye and understand each other. Sometimes it's really better just to agree to disagree and kind of walk away from something to reestablish a sense of inner balance,
I just thought of something. Can I interject about Game Changer here?
Thanks, you. Please do.
Okay. I was just thinking for folks who aren't in Flower Evolution, as you're talking about the topsy-turvy or terpsy-tavy, as we say sometimes, if you're not in the Flower Evolution, the recommended flower essence blend for this month is Game Changer. And that is huge support for just kind of lightening the load, helping you feel a little more lighthearted. If you have a huge to-do list, feeling like the lightness of what it would feel like as if it were already done, being able to experience a really quick personal growth, but in a really effortless way, not a painful way. And just like being able to embrace really quick shifts really easily, like Game Changer, as the name would state. So that sounds like a good one to introduce, especially around the full moon. Would you say?
I would totally say that. The full moon day itself has a lot of astrological aspects happening in addition to the sun changing signs and the moon being full. There's just a lot going on that day. Mm-hmm. And it is also the third of 3 supermoons. So it's very close to Earth, and therefore we're feeling it a lot more than your average full moon. It's a Libra moon. It's ruled by Venus. So we look to Venus and see where is she? And she's in Aquarius. And Aquarius, again, has that gift that sometimes of detaching a little bit from the situation and the emotionality of it and being able to have a clear head. So I think that's a game changer right there, right? If you can do that, not get so enmeshed in it all when the triggers are really happening. So yeah, I think that sounds perfect. Perfect. I guess it's International Astrology Day on the 20th. That's what it says on my calendar. Who knew?
Really?
Yeah. Celebrate take an astrologer to tea. So full moon, what about a ritual?
Okay, so you said reestablish give and take in relationships. Look out for wounded child, possibly agreeing to disagree. I don't know. I'm not getting a good read. Tell me more. Tell me more about the full moon.
Well, there's also, I'm looking at this chart and some other kind of minor players, or just like, with the way that I look at the astrology is kind of, there's like many different levels of what's going on. And the top level is like the sun and the moon and Chiron and all these things. And then I look to Venus as like a mid-level. She's the ruler of the moon, and this is what she's doing. And then below that, like, who's making a connection to Venus? Well, Jupiter's making a connection to Venus, which means there's a little bit of hope beneath it all. Like, especially if you're able to kind of get out of the drama and trauma game and kind of get to like, what's my bigger vision for how to be in this relationship? One that does meet all our needs and that, meet everybody's needs, like from that place of bigger visioning around it. And that this relationship to Jupiter is like, yeah, there's a little bit of hope tucked in there. If you can take maybe some new ideas and not necessarily run away with them, but how can you integrate them in to this new structure that maybe you're creating, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it could even tie into like earlier in the new moon, that kind of softening. If it's about relationships, then it's looking at all the relationships we have and envisioning a bigger operating system around it.
Totally. And really another underlying kind of foundational layer in this chart is that as far as earth signs go, Saturn and Pluto are very close to the South Node, which is that clearing away of things that are draining. And they're in a relationship with Mars. So this ability to let go of, I don't know, like the visual that I'm getting is like, I don't know, like you're standing on a landfill of garbage. You can like walk away from it and like get on some, get over and go to the park where the ground is, clean and earth. And it's not just a bunch of like the garbage of the past, if that makes sense. You know how in relationships you can just accumulate garbage and you're kind of just standing on it or in it in a way. And
yep.
You need to clear that away, and maybe you need to move away from it instead of, again, that's agreeing to disagree or letting go of that one fight that you can't stop having, or, or like that one place where you're trying to make the other person see your point of view and you're just like not speaking the same language. It's probably not going to happen. How can you move forward? Right.
Yeah. And it doesn't sound like killing that relationship. It sounds like re-envisioning it. Like you said, getting on different ground. Something
might need to die and be reborn.
Sure.
I mean so maybe you do need to kill something. Sorry, I've just got a little collie in me. But it's this Pluto on the South Node situation. Okay, maybe it's opposing
killing the old story.
Killing the old story, yes, like letting it die, and that becomes the compost. Then it's like the difference between a compost pile and a landfill of garbage. Like they're kind of the same thing, but one of them is actually going to produce a fertile soil. Right. And one of them is just going to like take a million years to decompose and not really make a fertile soil at all.
And who knows, sometimes you need a little heat, sometimes you need a little like heating up for that stuff to decompose.
Exactly.
So this could be like the heat up so you can let it decompose and re-envision a new foundation to build.
Right. And re-envision is going to be from a place of softening, because Mercury, remember, is retrograde in Pisces. And in this chart, Mercury is moving backwards towards that second conjunction with Neptune, which is can be very confusing, very disorienting, or it can soften you and help you surrender to the moment rather than the story. You know what I mean?
Love it.
And I feel like the sun on Chiron is the heat. And actually the wound and the pain is the heat that you can use to break through rather than stay stuck. That's how I like to think about it.
Love it.
So from that place, do we have any ideas about a ritual? See, Katie and I don't prepare anymore ahead of time for these. We just kind of fly in the moment. So we don't have our rituals all like under our wings. We have to imagine them in the moment.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this is a big relationship month. So it's like looking at old relationships that you could bring a little healing into, even if that's a relationship with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the most important one. I mean, if you can't bring the healing into your relationship with yourself, then you certainly can't.
Then you're really screwed.
You may as well just give up. No.
The way you were looking was really funny.
Well,
Waggling a finger.
What do you do if you can't do that? So
right, it's the first good place to start.
First good place to start. And let's remember that the North Node's in Cancer, right? The North Node is leading us, and that is the place of nourishment, of emotional connection. the, the arms of the Great Mother. It's kind of like
Mm.
that
Well,
place of softening, right?
yeah, I mean,
Being held.
I don't know. I just think of the same old thing, like sitting in the sauna and sweating off your old sluffy sluff, or sitting in a hot bath and basically just making time out for yourself to soften.
Take time out to soften. That's your ritual. That's a good one, because, whenever the moon is full, it's always dicey for a day before, the day of, and the day after. And when the supermoons happen, it's even more so. And really, anybody who has cardinal and mutable planets, that are a lot of things going on in cardinal and mutable signs. So like Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, or Pisces, Gemini, Sagittarius, and Virgo. That's where all the really hard aspects are hitting. Okay, from all of this little Pisces, Aries kind of mess that we just talked about. And if you need help with that, come see me. I gotta help you make sense of it. Some of you will be feeling it more than others, but it's a full moon, so take some time out for yourself to soften.
I love how you start talking about it as opportunities, and somehow by the end of the episode, it's a Pisces Aries mess.
It's a mess. Let's just be true.
Let's make a mess. You know what? That's kind of like a good theme, though. Is like, let's make a mess. Let's make a mess without, burning ourselves up. But
I mean, life is messy.
Yeah, it's hot and sweaty.
It's hot and sweaty. It stinks sometimes. It's dirty. It's messy. It's uncomfortable and itchy. And those are opportunities. Every one of them. I have them on the daily, and I'll tell you, half the time I fall down and I act out. I'm a human. What are you going to do? So that's our full moon. Oh,
what's after the full moon? Anything
my
good?
Little notes. Yes. Well, again, the 24 hours before and after the full moon.
This is how you read between the lines of an astrologer. So, anything coming up?
Just know that the tensions may spill over into the next day, because Venus and Aquarius are square the next day.
I was going to say, sounds like a square.
Square. Look at you, So that's just, a little bit of tension, and Venus is making an aspect to Jupiter. It's a little heating and spicy. So I just feel like this is kind of folded into any of the stuff around the full moon that might just be kind of spilling over. Okay?
Keep quiet and eat some more dark chocolate.
Just eat chocolate and get a massage, because pacify that Venus. And then on Friday, the next day, it's the sun's annual conjunction with Chiron. So again, like around the new moon, we have this little sequencing of events. It's the same thing around this full moon. We got this little sequence of events where certain things are going to get pinged, and they all kind of relate to each other in some kind of way, even though it may not make sense. And so you just might feel superhuman, as in failing all the time. You know what I mean?
Huh.
Anywho, that's and then the weekend continues.
Which is a greater opportunity for self-compassion.
That's right. Soften. Take your elixirs. And you know what? If you don't have any of these gorgeous LOTUSWEI elixirs, go buy some rose water and spray yourself. I mean, eat some honey, chocolate and honey. It's just, there's many ways to soften, and there's many tools. And you have your breath too, but I like rose water. In fact, I'm going to spray myself right now with some rose water because I'm parched.
Spray yourself with rose water. Use a rose quartz face roller.
That's true. I have my rose quartz face roller out too. It's all roses over here. Okay. It's so funny because literally for an aspect coming up, I have written down here, softening the heart. This is hilarious. Okay. But let's back up. This weekend, the blur continues, because this is Mercury making officially the conjunction with Neptune. Okay. It's going to happen.
Continues?
Yes. The blur continues. It's Mercury retrograde, and it's a very navigate by feeling. Again, we had this Mercury conjunct Neptune on February 18th when Mercury was direct. Now we've got the retrograde version of it, and then it's going to happen one more time when Mercury's direct again, and it'll happen in early April. So this is one of those 3 sequences where, Mercury in a place that's not necessarily clear and logical, which is how Mercury likes to be. Mercury is the mind and communication and, commerce. Mercury's in Pisces, spelunking, What's the other thing I thought about? Oh, when you go shipwreck diving, to
Ooh.
go find treasures, like what's treasure and what's trash, right? And I feel like the dream time, I actually think this is a month for a lot of dreaming. If you're a dreamer or a lucid dreamer or work with your dreams or any kind of getting into alpha and theta brain waves and like going to those kinds of places, that's where a lot of richness, and that's this kind of shipwreck diving where you're going through the past and you're pulling out the treasure and maybe you're polishing them off. So again, when things feel blurry, navigate by feel, right?
Take a nap.
Take a freaking nap. Yeah, totally. And water, be near water, be in water this whole month, right? With this Mercury retrograde in Pisces.
Take a hot bath every night.
Every night, take a hot bath, take a shower, drink a lot of water, sit by the water, listen to the sound of water flowing, moving, the waves. Again, these metaphors are real. Like when you are in the ocean and you get pummeled by a wave, if you struggle, it's worse. If you surrender
or dive right into it.
Yeah, you dive into it. Or if you get turned around, it smacked you and you got down there, if you're like scrambling around, you're just going to get scratched up, right?
Yeah.
So you soften, you surrender to the wave of energy.
Right.
You ride it and you come up for air.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the prescription for the month. And then Tuesday on the 26th, Venus moves into Pisces. So Venus is moving very quickly this month, right? She's moved all the way through Aquarius and now she's diving into Pisces with everybody else. Not everybody, but hanging out
the rest of us.
all the Pisces in the room. But this Venus in Pisces, and it's funny, we were talking about softening the heart because that is literally what I wrote, softening the heart, Venus in Pisces. Venus is celebrated in Pisces. She's in a good place. Venus likes to be in Pisces because it's very compassionate, open-hearted, healing kind of energy. And so that's available to everyone. Venus will be in Pisces until, looking at my calendar, April 20th, actually. So a nice long salve. This feels like the rose quartz roller on my face with the rose water. It feels like really cooling and like soothing and like a salve. And it feels like the painting behind you, that beautiful rose, that unfolding, the pinks. It also feels like that. So this is a good thing, right?
That's a really good thing.
That's on Tuesday.
It's almost an entire month of that yummy feeling.
It's almost and April is, much less soggy of a month as well. This is a little soggy of a month, just, because. And then right after Venus moves into Pisces, she's going to make an aspect to Uranus that is a flowing aspect. Now, Venus and Uranus have been in a lot of hard aspects over the last few months. And so I feel like this Venus in Pisces looking over and saying hello to Uranus and Taurus is like a new view about something. It's a fresh view and a fresh relationship being established. And if your charts, you just look to the Taurus and Pisces parts of your charts, and that's where you can get this idea of where it's all happening. I mean, certainly the Pisces has been all activated all month long, right, with the retrograde. And this Taurus area is going to get a whole big shakeup over the next 7 years. So there's some freshness coming from the softening. All the hard work you did all month long, it's paying off. And then on Thursday, the 28th, Mercury stations direct. So don't go buying your technology quite yet, though. I mean, again, Mercury is very, very still for quite some time. It's just the way that it is. But it definitely is it's a dropping of anchor and a shifting of direction, and then a moving back forward.
Good question. How long is Mercury in Pisces?
Oh gosh, Mercury is in Pisces until April 17th. It's very long. Mercury can move through a sign in 2.5 weeks when Mercury is going quickly.
That's interesting.
2 months of Mercury in Pisces.
It's almost around the time that, Venus is in Pisces. Like those are going to switch at the same time next month too.
I know. They're traveling in Pisces together. That's nice. She's going to help him. She's going to help Venus out.
Communication.
She's going to help Venus out.
Relationships.
Say what? What'd you say?
Good communication in relationships and around money, right?
Yes. And compassion and altruism and kindness, right? And generosity
Love it.
and creativity.
Oof.
I think, well, for all the writers out there, I just want to say Mercury retrograde is a really good time to like go and kind of review and revise writing projects, or to really spend a lot of time writing. Again, any creative projects, any spiritual practices can go very deep during the Mercury retrograde in Pisces. And then Venus coming in with Mercury, hanging out together for a while. That just, again, she brings a beacon of hope into it all. I feel like she's happy in Pisces. And then really we end the month on a zippy note, because Mars is like moving signs. Mars is moving into Gemini. So Mars is basically moving from like the slowest tread in Taurus, like super slow, to speedy, scattered, excitable Gemini. So a lot of freshness and variety, but potentially a little bit of scatteredness to begin with. It's, again, moving from earth to air. You just got to think about that, the feeling of gravity to flying, kind of.
And what day is that?
The 31st on the West Coast. I think for the East Coasters, it's going to happen on the 1st of April. But okay. I just think that kind of, there's a couple of rough patches this month, and we've got definitely the Mercury retrograde all month long, but all of the crunchiness, all of the itchiness, it's all, what we call it, an opportunity. It's to soften the heart, to bring more compassion in, to change, to create a new foundation and live into a new story and let go of some old stuff, right? Revise. Review, repattern, renewal. What are some other words? Recalibrate. Come on.
This is sounding like a spa menu.
Lisa
and I used to like make jokes about all spa menus, because it was like, oh my God, not another one with rejuvenate, renew.
Rejuvenate.
They're all re's, spa menus.
So basically,
they need to be redone.
Redone. You know what? March is a spa menu of your choice. And you know what? Don't you like to get, don't they do some things where they scratch you with dry brushes? And sometimes
exfoliation.
That's what's happening. It's like the pumice stones are coming out. Dry brushing. Anything to help clear your lymph is going to be really beneficial. Also, Pisces shows up in the lymph. Foot massages. They will be exquisite.
Ooh.
Foot rolling, like myofascial release on your feet, foot soaks, things like that. Those will also be very nice. And
hot springs.
Hot springs, and tend to your immune systems.
Okay.
Also, because, the lymph, the immune, you get a lot of like toxins in your lymph, and then you can kind of like, it weighs you down, then you catch the cold.
Yeah. We're trying to figure out how to do mud baths here in the building.
Are you going to have a mud pit? Are you going to?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just saw like wrestling going on. I don't even know why, because Mars is in Taurus. That's why. Okay. That's cool.
Okay. We'll start the mud pits, and you can do the first honorary mud wrestling. But no, we were seriously, we're going to build a structure and then have it, have all the muddy water just go into gray water outside and feed the plants and the earth.
I love it. I actually love putting mud on my body. It feels
it's so detoxifying.
good.
If you get the right stuff, the right layer of minerals and
very good. Have you ever taken a cedar bath?
I did. You know what? I just took one a month ago.
Did you feel that it just like pulled and was like you were just draining? I felt like it was, when I took the cedar bath, I felt like stuff was just being pulled out of my body.
The cedar enzymes, like the sawdust?
Yeah.
Did you go to osmosis?
I did.
Yeah, that's a great place.
Yeah. Okay. Random aside, but it just mud bath made me think of the cedar bath. That was pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, we did that a month ago for the second or third time. If anybody is traveling to California, San Francisco, it's about a hour and a half north. It's about 40 minutes north of Sonoma. Yeah, it's a friend of mine who owns the stay spa, and you just basically get in this massive pit of cedar and Douglas fir, almost like sawdust, like shaving.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they introduce Japanese enzymes, and basically it just starts to compost and ferment, and natural heat that comes from this compost. Speaking of composting, so you get into this naturally composting sawdust. It sounds very crazy, but
it's wild. I literally felt like, and we were talking about, I was talking about the feet because of Pisces. Like it felt like stuff was being pulled out of my feet, particularly. Like it literally felt like they were draining, like toxins were being pulled out of my feet. It was fascinating. It was a fascinating experience.
Yeah, I actually felt like I was getting a cold that day when we went. And as soon as I was fully submerged in the wood, like everything just stopped. Like my sniffles and my all that weird cold stuff just like stopped immediately. And it just heats you up from the inside out. It's really wonderful. So anyway, if you're in Northern California,
go to Osmosis.
Go to Osmosis. Is the only place in the country that has these, or Japan.
Yeah, they're cool. All right, that was a random aside, but I feel like it made sense. Composting.
Yeah. It's a healing thing.
It's a healing thing. That's right. It is.
Okay, so full circle. We're going to say the themes for this month are, let's see, what do I have? We have subconscious spelunking. We have stabilizing for big changes. Softening and compassion. Feeling your way towards a solution from the inside. Creating a big vision of something that hasn't been done before by feel. Shipwreck diving. Anything else?
No, those are good themes. I think that's good. I know that when I kind of did the year ahead forecast, and March is kind of a tough month a little bit. Like it is one of the little soggy spots in the year, but I really do feel like there's some very beautiful potential for kind of rebirthing, like clearing away, like in the way that cedar bath just pulls stuff out. That's what I feel like this month can do for us, is to help us really just maybe go through a little bit of bumpy patches or dive through some waves, but coming out of it, I think we're going to feel very refreshed. That's what I'm planning on for myself, at least.
Fresh new baby.
Yeah, especially if we don't fight it. If you work with it and go with it. That's the key, is not to fight it, but figure out ways to work with it. Yeah, the softening. And to seek support if you need it. Seek the support that you need in all of your healers and therapists and whatnot if you're really in a hard place. Your practices, your community, and things like that. Because Pisces is also Pisces has that big heart that wants to take care of the world. So there's you have a resource to help take care of you if you're feeling like you're drowning, because it's possible. It's a lot this month.
Yeah, and let me just say, in case you happen to be in the area in Phoenix, in case I haven't mentioned it before, we have 3 new practitioners that are operating out of our space.
Oh, they sound so good. Sorry, they just sound amazing. I'm going to teleport to Phoenix. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's like a secret TCM, or secret traditional Chinese medicine clinic, with everything, flower essences infused into everything. We have the most incredible acupuncturist who also does cupping and gua sha and facial rejuvenation and all kinds of really amazing things that you wouldn't typically see, but she's so good. And she's so good with figuring out what flower essences you need. And oftentimes she'll be about to put in like 15 needles and realize that if she applies this particular anointing oil, she only needs to put in 3 or 4 needles. So it's a pretty cool, she's fabulously intuitive. And then we also work with Juliana, who is a Chinese herbalism doctor, and no more of these like soaking all these Chinese herbs in weird porcelain pots and cooking. She just does your tongue and pulse reading and gives you a quick tincture that you take about as less times than you would flower essences, and then everything is put back into balance. She's amazing. And a massage therapist that's been working for over 25 years that we'll interview here soon on the podcast, who has an amazing story. And quite possibly another fellow who does all kinds of Japanese healing. So really getting into Asian medicine and booking lots of appointments and shifting everyone's philosophy around healing and how nourishing and simple it can be.
So good.
Yeah. So if you happen to be in the Phoenix area or you want to come to Phoenix when it's starting to warm up and get nice weather, come and see us. We can take care of you.
Do you guys have Airbnbs that you run to?
We
kidding.
don't, but we have there's so many good ones here.
Yeah. But I was just imagining like a LOTUSWEI style Airbnb, and it was really awesome. But I'm sure there are some really good Airbnbs there.
I know, we were trying to figure out, oh geez, we need like a shower and a couple bunk beds, and we could put something built in too. But for now, regular Airbnb will have to do, and there's some really awesome ones. So yeah, come out to Phoenix. We'll hit you up.
Sounds good. I'm coming. Watch out, Phoenix.
All right. Well, happy March, everyone. And thank you again, Kristina, for being with us and all your fabulous astrological wisdom.
Thank you, Katie. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to the Flower Lounge. I'm Katie Hess, and we'll be releasing a new podcast every Wednesday. If you like what you heard, or you know someone who might be touched by our conversation, share it with them. And don't forget to subscribe. To find out what your favorite flowers mean about you, take the quiz at lotuswei.com.